Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education workshop meeting. Today is Tuesday, April 4th. The time is now 7:04. With me this evening, I have Colin Hostin, Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, Janine Randolph, Carol Bakey, Board of Education Chair, Secretary Sherry McPhee Pritchard. And I also have Dr. Alexandra Estrella. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Online, I do have Erica De Palma. I don't see any other board member on there. Is that correct?
That's what I found.
So before we get started, I would like to make a change in the agenda. So if everybody is in agreement, I'd like to switch B with C, change student voices, and move up on Bound Ed instructional walkthrough. Motion to make that change?
I make a motion.
Mary Ellen, seconded by Kara. All in favor? Okay, thank you, everyone. And with that, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. Street.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's workshop.
Good now. Sorry.
Do I need to start over?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. There are a number of items that we are going to discuss in today's workshop. I would like to start off today with first discussing end of year event schedule. As you know, to date, we've had 2 closures due to inclement weather, one that took place December 23rd, 2022, the second, February 28th, 2023. This results in us having thus far a total of 180 school days in the calendar, and we have set the following last week of school dismissal schedule. From Monday through Thursday, June 12th to June 15th, we will have normal dismissal for students in K-8. June 16, 2023, we will have a 2-hour early dismissal. For the high schools for this year, to provide students an opportunity to engage in their project-based learning end-of-year tasks, and to give the educators an opportunity to review, provide supports, and other resources to students. They will have a modified schedule throughout the weeks of Monday, June 5th through June 14th. Those schedules will be provided by the high schools to all of the high school students and families so that they have the specifications of what those schedules will look like. Those schedules will encompass opportunities for early release, opportunities for makeup, and opportunities for staff to engage in the project-based finals review and grading and finalizing their student portfolios, particularly for those students that will be graduating. Also, this year, graduations will be as follows. For CGS, the graduation date is scheduled for June 9th at 6 p.m. at Global Studies. CMS, June 14th, 6 p.m. at Concord Magnet. Nathan Hale, 5:30 p.m. at Norwalk High School on June 14th. Conus Ridge, June 14th, 7:30 p.m., Brian McMahon. Roten Middle School, June 14th, 5:30 p.m., City Hall. West Rock, June 14th, 7:30 p.m., City Hall. Norwalk High School and PTEC, 6 p.m., June 15th at Norwalk High School. Brian McMahon High School, June 16th at 6 p.m. at Brian McMahon High School. This will be posted for those families that wish to further review these dates. But we're looking forward to a strong ending to the year with a lot of positive celebrations, particularly honoring those students that will be engaging in moving up ceremonies, as well as our high school graduations. With that said, unless the board has any question, I'll move to the next item. So we've been working with Unbound Ed for the past several months, and they have been immersed in professional learning opportunities for our staff across the district. They've engaged in an instructional walk to inform us in terms of how those practices and professional learning opportunities are playing out in the classroom. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McBride to speak in greater length about the work and to introduce our guest today that will speak about the findings from that walk.
Good evening, members of the board, our Dr. Strayer, our esteemed scholars, families in the Norwalk community, and Dr. McBride here, and I'm excited about tonight because we get to share some of the learning as well as the partnerships that we developed over the past 2 years, specifically around how we're providing equitable instruction and access for all of our scholars. Last year, we received a grant that allowed for a 2-day summit where we had a variety of learners, about 100 teachers throughout the district, embark on unpacking standards. Partnering with Unbound Ed, they went through the process of actually understanding what the standards are, the various complexities surrounding the actual standards, but also thinking about how they can apply this process to ensure that they are providing standards actually through their work in pedagogy. And so after that 2 days, a lot of our teachers were really excited about the fact that they felt that the professional learning that they received was so impactful, they wanted to continue it. And so I reached out to Unbound Ed and said to them, do you all have any type of structure that allows for more of an ongoing, deeper dive into the actual work of unpacking standards to ensure we are teaching at grade level? And at that time, they did not have anything for us, but they said they'd get back to us. And so I reached out to them again, maybe around late August, and they had developed, but they were talking about a new program that was entitled Glean, which is focused around grade level, engaging, affirming, and meaningful pedagogy that ensures all of our scholars not only have access, but I also feel like they are valued in the work. And so we partnered with them, and we engaged in the process of having about 30 individual instructional leaders. We had about another cohort of principals, APs, to really go through a whole year around developing capacity around this work. And so what I loved about the program is that they prioritized our focus, which is utilizing data to be able to make informed decisions about how we're planning for all of our scholars to get access. And so one of the components as a part of the structure was that they would actually come in midway through to see where we are in terms of implementation. And so after attending about 5 of the sessions, we were able to coordinate with them to identify what the look-fors would be when they actually came and give us a true assessment of the work that we are saying that we want to do and kind of give us the feedback that we need to perfect and strengthen those practices. And so we had our walkthrough, I think, must be 2 weeks ago. And I want to first of all thank all of our amazing leaders who invited us into our schools, all of our amazing teachers who also invited, oftentimes, there was between 4 to 5 of us to be able to kind of just assess and see the work that's already happened. And it allowed us to have more of a balcony view of the work so that we can kind of go back and refine those things to really strengthen the work to ensure that all of our students have access. And so after those 4 days, we were able to meet with the team that was comprised of actually I want to steal her thunder, about 4 individuals who kind of walked us through what they saw. So we all also normed every single day to kind of make sure we were all seeing the same things and reflecting upon what we saw. And so as a result of the walkthrough, they're providing us with a detailed itemization report that aligns with the work that we did. And we want to make sure that after the walkthrough, they can present to you themselves some of the findings and some of the work in more detail. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to our amazing colleague, Ms. Valerie Dragon, who will walk us through some of those findings.
Thank you. I really appreciate the intro. I will say this is a first for us, but the partnership has been something that Dr. McBride has really advocated for, and we felt very compelled to help you kind of spread the initiatives and the work with everyone. So what we're going to do today is really get a chance to dive into the walkthrough experience. Again, I just want to preface with everyone, this is truly not an indictment of the current state. What we want to do is norm on what we're all seeing to ensure that the investments for the future or desired state is something that we can all speak to. So one of the biggest thing I want to say is that as a collective team, the Unbound Ed team with the Norwalk team, we definitely wanted to make sure that at the end of this experience, we would be normed on what our instructional priorities are, and to make sure that the team that is currently in partnership learning actually has the appropriate, or actually gets a push for the problem of practice that we think would actually amount to the biggest change for students. So just in terms of context, I wanted to make sure that what you expect is what I offer. One, we want you to understand our partnership. So there'll just be a quick level setting of what Dr. McBride mentioned around this thing, GLEAM. What is that? And how do we actually make that serve as an anchor for our partnership? There's also this idea of you'll be able to see the headlines that we offered. And then lastly, just making sure that we could share where do we land as an instructional leadership team in terms of the aspirations to help push development to, again, move towards that desired state. We had 4 facilitators, myself included. So I'm Valerie Dragon at Unbound Ed. I'm the Vice President of Leadership and ELA programs. One of the great things about how we cultivate our work is we understand that we're privileged enough to be outside of schools, to think through how school can work for everyone. And the way we choose our facilitators is we pick people who are still working in schools and continue to consult in ways that keeps our content very fresh. So these are the 4 individuals who were actually able to visit the schools that we had in our walk. And just a little bit about GLEAM, when we think about what is the purpose of us using this as an anchor, at Unbound Ed, we do believe that if we can have more schools ensure a GLEAM experience in classrooms, we will get closer to eliminating the predictability of achievement by race and socioeconomic status. So in short, like the hypothesis for GLEAM is that with the appropriate mindset, and yes, that means we've cultivated appropriate mindset that really can take opportunities for planning, we'll be able to actually have that GLEAM experience, and we'll be able to have these look-fors in what teachers do and how students react to the teacher actions. So we did have a norm tool, and that tool actually lists all the look-fors. I will spare you by just giving you the quick overview. When we think about the teacher mindset, we're thinking about, do teachers at Norwalk believe that it is their role to prepare students for not just the tasks that they're completing, not their current grade level, but there is a life skill kind of orientation to why work is being put in front of students. And you can see from the slide additional kind of points around that. The other piece is this idea of planning. We do believe that you have to plan to meet the needs of the many learners in a classroom. So just thinking about what is the commitment to planning And what does that commitment do in terms of practice and behaviors? So here you'll see, again, it's not just the academic identity we want to build in students, it's also the cultural identity that we want to make sure that students do not feel stripped. And so we're asking teachers to do something very heavy. We're asking teachers to know their content in terms of the standards, know the curriculum they're using, and then deeply know students so that scaffolding is something that we're prepared to do with intentionality. With the teacher actions, we're looking for what Dr. Hammond, who is leading a lot of work around culturally relevant teaching, speaks to in terms of something called a learning partnership. So how is it that we can leverage not just relationships, but what we know about students to create the conditions that students can feel they're a part of their learning experience. They are actively making decisions about their learning strategies to be able to push themselves to a space of rigor. And then lastly, again, what we're looking for is students really embracing the struggle. They understand that learning is a journey and they're willing to go there with their teachers and their peers. So we are pretty much stating this is the aspirational state. And we think that if schools can cling on to this, we would have a different learning experience that students would be aligned with. So after we level set with the team on the first day around what do we actually want, we always set surveys to figure out if the learning each day was getting what we wanted in terms of impact. And I wanted to just share some of the quotes that some of the leaders actually, who were part of the walk, they actually shared. One of the things in Gleam is this idea of meaningful. And that is pretty much how do I apply the learning into a real life scenarios where I feel like I'm a critical consumer of the world around me. So a lot of people reacted to how we define meaningful instruction and really wanted to have more conversation around what that meant in terms of practice. The other piece was feedback just around having the team react to our pushes. Everyone on the team was ready for it. So we did hear a lot of, I had my thinking pushed. I was happy to have normed on my lens for instruction with a peer. And I actually understand the importance of teachers actually facilitating learning instead of being the primary drivers of it. The other was what we ended up realizing at the end of our walk. We have to get to a place where content internalization, so that just means I planned what I intended to do, that is something that we do, not just to make sure that we meet the needs of what we want for our students, but this idea of building teacher efficacy, that teachers feel empowered to be able to do and lift the charges of being the primary instructor in a space. So what were the headlines? What did we see in math and ELA classrooms? Again, this is just a summary, just so we can get to what we actually decided to do with the learning afterwards. So we started off with just an evaluation of our mission and vision. And so again, the alignment between our organization and what you all envision for students is very clear and direct. We actually have it named that we want students to have an equitable experience and to be prepared for all aspects of life. So what was great about taking that time is we were able to then connect it to the strategic priorities and just really be able to think through if we are living the vision and mission, if we are being strategic about our named priorities, what do we anticipate seeing in classrooms? And so that is really where a lot of the dissonance came from that produced a lot of learning. We're saying we want to do this, and that becomes what we have to norm around each day that we have the learning lab. And here were some of the trends. In terms of how we talked about it, 1 second before I go through the trends, we wanted folks to be able to use our tool to be able to capture the current state of instruction, be able for us to walk in side by side and say, this is what we saw. So does the evidence support what I think the current state of instruction is? And then the push is, since the cohort team, the 30 or so individuals involved in our program right now, is this connected to what they've identified as the problem of practice? So with that conversation and these guiding questions, we went into classrooms. One of the things that we wanted to lift up was just the importance of environment and affirming students. When we walked into schools, that was something that was clear, just knowing that teachers are inviting students in. There were very explicit messaging around students belonging in this space. And in every classroom, we saw students ready to learn. And so that was something that we were like, great. You know, we just came off of COVID and whatever that meant for everyone was a pause in the plan. So to see that spaces are being cultivated so students can feel re-invited or welcomed again, it just aligns with a lot of our view on inclusion. So that was wonderful to see across all the campuses we visited. The other was the adoption of IM. We saw a lot of students, especially when the content we were observing was related to math. Students were in it with teachers and their peers. So we saw a lot of people, when we were using the curriculum with integrity, the teachers were giving students space to truly critically solve. So it wasn't a lot of answer getting, it was please explain your reasoning. Tell me what else you're thinking. Could there be another way that we could have? So we saw a lot of strengths in the area of math that we were excited to see. The other piece around English language arts was just making the learning objective accessible to students. So we did see a lot of teachers posting objectives, making sure that students knew why they were learning and making sure that students had what they need to engage with it. So we definitely think, especially when we think about the ELA shifts, the fact that what we saw was instruction grounded in text was something we could celebrate. So when we think about what GLEAM is, we're talking about grade level text tasks and materials. We're talking about engagement. This is not just the turn and talk and the look of activity happening in the classroom. When we say engagement, we're talking about teachers seeing where students are, knowing deeply what the standard calls for, and being able to appropriately intervene with scaffolds. After that, we have this affirming lens, which is we want students to know they do not have to strip themselves of their identity in order to engage in academic spaces. And because of all three, we're able to position students to be critical consumers of what's happening around them and be able to leverage their learning to be possibly future change agents or social architects at best. So when we were thinking about these strains, we also had time to talk about, are any of these aspects of GLEAM at risk? One of the things that we definitely saw was that getting to this E, A, and M, being able to get students to that place where they are critically consuming, we have to go back to this E. How are we intentionally preparing teachers to give appropriate scaffolds? Scaffolding doesn't mean that I'm positioning myself to save students. It's this idea that I trust the productive struggle that I'm putting in front of students because I'm planned to do so by use of the standard. So what you'll see here is that the aim of the learning experience is at risk. The teachers do not allow for the productive struggle. And in order to do that, we have to help them internalize the content that they're expected to teach. The other was just this idea of math. We could not say that math, in terms of application across the 5 sites, that the curriculum was securing an equitable experience. In some spaces, we saw math, the curriculum being used with fidelity. In other places, it was not. The thing behind that, if we really peeled back and we did that through discourse, was in order for me to use something the way it was designed to be used, I have to understand the design principles of it. And that largely lives with understanding that we have standards that were influenced by the shifts in ELA and math. And now I have to, as a teacher, connect those 2 design principles to the actual things I'm asking students to do. And if I do that well, one of the biggest outcomes will be a lot of student discourse. In ELA, we have a similar shift. It's this idea that I want students to have a robust text in front of them, not just excerpts. I want them to see the development of writing, the development of characters. And so that was something that we called out, this idea of how many students get to hold a physical whole book that is complex enough for them to have to think critically about the journey of the story, the arc of it. So again, that's an understanding of I have these shifts. I know these standards are calling for complex text. And what I'm asking students to do align with my understanding of both. So when we've thought through what we can actually do with the shared information, there were a couple of conversations. One started with just having everyone share based off of what we saw, what would we say is the current state of instruction and what was the evidence? So if you're going to say it, name how we saw it in the course of the week. And through that conversation, we went back to this idea of what is the identified problem of practice? Meaning if we can actually prioritize something to solve together, what would that be based off of our claim and our evidence? So we pulled up what the current cohort, the folks from Norwalk who actually come to our programming currently this year. This problem of practice was anchored in, again, this idea of using data. How do we use data to plan for appropriate scaffolds? And that was something that we wrestled with, because it's not the wrong problem of practice, but we decided to rethink or reconsider what could be the appropriate starting point to be able to get to this place where we're using data intentionally. The claim that we ended up making was that we saw that students are consumers of knowledge and that they are completers of activities, but not the drivers of their own learning. And to put it plainly, what we discussed seeing was students are literally involved in tasks. There was not one classroom where students were not working, but that became the focus, the task that was in front of them. So the push was, how do we get students to actually create this collaborative learning space instead of focusing on task completion? So with that conversation, we went back to what Dr. McBride already named. It's this idea that we do have to prioritize lesson internalization. And what that looks like varies across many school districts, but we're talking about who is the individual that can sit side by side with teachers. It could be at the unit level, at the lesson level, but just this idea that we are going to internalize what the plan was for that day and plan for the misconceptions so we can anticipate what students need a little bit more tightly. The other thing that we talked about were the 3 T's, we call them. What are the needs connected to people and teams? And there was a lot about needing mindset work. There's been a large demographic shift. So how do we make sure that teachers are aware of their, conceptually, their role in the classroom, but then also what are the structures of each school when we think about this opportunity for guided planning or guided practice? That was also connected to time. Do we have the time to do what we're saying we want to do in terms of developing teachers to be better positioned to develop students? And then this idea of the tools again. We knew that we had the high quality curriculum in IM. And so we were not surprised when we saw tighter alignment to standards and grade level work with that, but the variance for ELA was very wide and disparate. So when we sat down on our final day, this idea of what could we say collectively is our instructional priority? What would actually make sure that learning would shift that experience? We came up with, if we prioritize lesson internalization that embeds standards unpacking, which is crucial here, then teacher provided scaffolds will lead to productive struggle. That's the struggle that will create discourse. That's the struggle that students need to think about, well, how do I learn? And that's also the struggle that would allow teachers to check for understanding in intentional ways to push towards rigor. In that conversation, the leadership team thought about 2 key things that they needed to follow up on post the walk. One was, what is professional learning? What's the content that we're putting in front of teachers to learn? Who's going to create that learning plan? Who facilitates the plan? We're talking about what is the vision for coaching. Talked about that, and then the conversation shifted into, well, what do we want to offer our leaders? And really one of the pushes was to make sure that leaders are positioned to have a strong instructional lens so that they can feel confident in providing that support for teachers. And just to close out, I don't know if this was too fast or too fast, but I hope you got the gist. But one of the things that we push is this idea that when we're calling for equitable instruction, especially when it lives in our mission and vision, we're actually calling for students to experience a form of justice. And so at Unbound Ed, we're saying justice is found in the details of teaching and learning. And one thing I will definitely applaud the Learning Walk team at Norwalk was pushing even this concept to think bigger than just the details, to say, well, are our structures right now indicative of really pushing for justice? What are the details in our structures and our tools? So a lot more work to do, but the conversation start was around aligning on a vision, and the team left with clear ideas around what to do next, especially in terms of development. I will stop my screen share and throw it back to you, Dr. McBride.
Thank you so much for your presentation today. I have to say, we had the opportunity to meet with members of Ombudsman Ed to discuss the findings from the walkthrough, and it was quite enlightening, and it's going to be very helpful for us as we plan forward for our goals for 23-24 to kind of to inform the professional learning that needs to continue for school leaders as well as our teachers, paraeducators, and other staff throughout the district. So I'll open it up for questions from the board to the presenter.
My question would be, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think it's beneficial all around for the district to be able to have a reflective practice to engage with. I guess my first question is, in practice, what would something like this look like in a classroom if some of these initiatives were going to be executed in a math class or an English class? Just sort of, what would something like that look like?
I feel like I need you to ask the question either differently. What's the it that you're asking around?
So you're looking at how we are, if I understand it correctly, to ensure that we are executing curriculum that is equitable, creating an understanding around that, correct?
Yes.
In how we do our math in English, how we teach math in English,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So what would that look like in a classroom? I'm imagining that it would require some professional development for our staff on some of these matters.
So I think, one, a lot of the leaders spoke to work that had already started. I'll give math, for instance. We heard a lot of mentions around the 5 practices to elevate math discourse. So that is actually a really good start to the development of understanding what are the practices. And in short, it's like when you read that book and go through that development, there should be a connection around, I read this lesson plan, I know the standard, so here's what I should anticipate. And how do I monitor for learning and actually create discourse because I'm seeing what students are doing? So I think it's twofold. There is this idea of pedagogically, can we name what we expect to see teachers do? And hearing that let me know, oh, we actually want there to be more discourse in math. So it's like continuing that learning arc would be key. But as mentioned, this idea of planning was the place where I felt there was not a clear accountability structure to ensuring that teachers are reading the lesson plan and actually have the space to grapple with what they may not understand or may need more support around understanding in that space. So it's not just what is the development we'll give them, because we have instances where that has already happened. It's what are the coaching structures? Now that I know you've been developed, what can you expect almost like as your wraparound support around these development goals? For math, we definitely feel like the curriculum is sound enough, but we have to trust students to talk about the math and not just complete it. For ELA, the difficulty that we saw was right now, Dr. McBride, what's the curriculum again? Wonders. Wonders was one of the ones that we went through. That is a literacy resource. There are a lot of excerpts there, but not a lot of access to full text. So there's a limited experience with text that students are getting. And so one of the things that we talked about is we're not going to right now in this time throw out the curriculum, but how can we actually have some scaffolds to the fact that we need students to engage with the whole arc of the text instead of just focusing on the literature series. So we did start thinking through some problem solving around that, but it's going to be your point. Yes, we have to develop teachers to see something different in classrooms. And part of that development has to be some coaching mechanism that involves.
Are there some metrics that are included that would determine whether or not the program is successful?
I mean, I'm gonna always lean toward, wait, Dr. McBride, I felt like you were gonna say something.
I think the actual walkthroughs themselves provide the metrics based upon what you're able to observe in practice are definitely a way to be able to assess whether or not we are reaching the optimal implementation of the program.
Yes, and one of the things that we discussed was the tool that we used. And so we definitely spoke about what's the tool that can norm our lens for what we anticipate to see. Because right now, I think just in terms of the instructional culture, a visible shift, I would say, anecdotally, would be a metric that I would keep a keen eye on. We definitely need to use data and see, oh, are we getting different outcomes in terms of student work? So we talked about that DDI. It's not the wrong problem of practice. We just need to be able to have the structures to push the use of data, but student work is going to be the tell. It's what are the ways that we analyze what students are doing? How often do we do that? And what does growth mean for each student? That's something that we want to see more of, this discussion of student work analysis, and in order to make sure that not only are the scaffolds appropriate, but that driving metric is achievement.
And that the driving metric is also standard aligned.
Yes, like one of the things with grade level that was difficult, but also it was great to see that we didn't have to stay there. When you have grade level instruction, you can actually evaluate for everything else. So that was one of the things that would either let us have more discourse or not. Is this actually grade level instruction? And norming around that was the experience. Like you could imagine if we have to norm on if what we're seeing is grade level, then we can actually do things to make sure that that's evident and clear. And so right now, I think the reason why we're pushing for internalization is we have to increase exposure with the standards to better understand why we're using these tools, or to interrupt why the tools aren't being used appropriately, to be frank.
Regarding your mention of the capital M, and in terms of how that looks, influencing the mindset at the elementary level for instruction.
Yeah.
Could you give a little more detail on how that connection, on an example of that type of connection?
Yes, we actually saw it in a third grade classroom. I don't know if that's how low you want me to go, but third grade, we were able to walk into a classroom. And a quick example of that, which was great because a lot of people said they were struggling with understanding, like, what does this mean, meaningful? But we were in a small group where a teacher was reading a text with students, and they were unpacking it to really figure out the word captivity. And when they actually were discussing captivity, the teacher took an opportunity away from text to say, animals are kept in captivity. Do you think that's like right? And the students were kind of going through like, well, I mean, in true elementary fashion, they're like, but I want to go to a zoo. So of course it's okay if animals were captive. But another student counteracted that offering and said, well, when we put animals in captivity, they're not living in their natural habitat. That can't be right. So then the teacher said, I want you to hold that thinking. And now I'm going to ask you, we hold people in captivity. Is that right? And the kids paused because they had to think about what that meant. And then one of the students said, so when we're talking about jail, and then they were like, oh, but what else? What other ways? And the teacher said, just pause. We actually have a text that we're going to have to really think through captivity and humanity. And I was like, well, I don't know what that lesson is going to be, but she definitely dropped some meaningful gems in that small moment. And so for us, the conversation is, are teachers, when they're working with students, aware of the full almost unit plan? Where are all these lessons going? What is the performance task? And then conversations with the curriculum writer who was with us, she exposed what the performance task was, which was pretty much to actually make a claim about what you would do in a situation involving captivity. So that's an example of meaningful. And we also don't expect meaningful to happen every day. It's really rooted in, if I keep the performance task in mind, I can use that to anchor students to start thinking critically along the way. Even if I cannot give a lot of time to it, I can start the thinking process.
Thank you for that. So it's encouraging to hear the great things that are happening, and affirming that the district's going in the direction we know it is.
Yes, I definitely, like when we walked in and my team walked away, we first, again, because we're doing this nationally, one of the things is, where are schools post-COVID? So even that conversation with the team was like, there's a lot to celebrate here. There's a lot to celebrate because we're not off track. It's just, how do we push for movement in intentional ways? So now that we mostly have folks on track, how do we leverage the people who are? And what does that look like to actually start developing almost like peer-to-peer relationships in each school? We had a lot of conversation about what next, which is exciting because really we landed on, in order to develop and push students, we're going to have to clarify our vision for coaching and develop teachers.
Could I press on the idea of examples? First, I'm very thrilled with the way you're going about this, the respect for teachers and respect for students, and the openness to truly get the concept and the practice of what the subject matter is. But what I'm going for an example is, you mentioned a few times for the students to be embracing the struggle. This is so clear in mathematics. I mean, I know students hate it when they don't get the right answer the first time. But what you're aiming for is not only just working, persistence, working with the problem, but also thinking different ways and listening to other children find different ways. And could you give some examples of what you saw with that?
Yes, and I think really to double down on who is using the curriculum with integrity or fidelity is really the difference, like that drives the examples. We have one instance, we had teachers who picked parts of a lesson and they stayed there for the duration of the math block. And what that showed was, I'm comfortable with teaching this part. It may not have a lot of struggle involved, and so we're going to have a good time in math. And by isolating just specific activities, we just kind of mitigate the overall design. So that was an instance where it was like, we're not going to get to struggle if you're actually making decisions that remove it. Because again, the one thing that was clear in all classrooms, students were working. So now it's like, what are they working on? So I can flip that and say, what's an example of it working well? One teacher in 5th grade had students on the carpet. She put up the kind of the activator that was in the lesson plan and had students just have 10 open minutes just to try. After that, she's monitoring, she's looking, and she picks up different representations. She's not looking for right answers. She actually is just looking for student work that will create discourse. By her picking 5 different answers, we had students who were like, that looked like mine, that looked like mine. Now create a rationale. Why was this, what was different about yours? You said it was like yours, but not exactly. And then after that discussion, she then drives them to a conjecture, which is, you understand what you just did was get us to our learning objective. Not only was that already designed, she was afraid to go there. So the class started with students talking. And so when I say this idea of productive struggle, I would say overwhelmingly, the experience was about answer getting. Get the answer and then complete the task. So students were focused on, is it right or wrong? I would argue that in order for me to struggle, I may have to do that collectively, but I also cannot be focused on the outcome. I have to appreciate the journey. So if teachers can be more willing to have students go on a journey, that's where we'll maximize the opportunities for students to get used to the struggle, embrace the struggle, but also not feel defeated when they experience struggle.
It will be so interesting to have, as a culture, we're so used to what grade did you get and how are you, how are you proceeding? But in this situation, and this is really what standards are, the essence of science standards and math standards, to get students to think originally, let's say, to kind of own their knowledge.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how you can get the data, get the, you were just describing a great discussion, but where's the data in that?
Mhm.
So that's my question. How do you say, okay, this, other than giving that example, which was a really excellent one.
Yeah. No, I love that thinking. And I think that's where it is. It's almost like, especially with IM, the great thing about IM, and again, I'm not advocating for a curriculum, but I will say I've seen great things happen with IM. It's this idea that teachers are not tied to one day, one lesson. There could be 3 to 5 days attached to a lesson. And I think that goes to the heart of internalizing. So in a lot of our work, we not only teach teachers how to read a lesson plan, because Teacher College may not have done that. We also make sure that they can anticipate where are the opportunities for you to figure out what students know. So I can look at one IM lesson and say, here's the data I'm collecting today that will lead them to this moment of practice. And that's what I'm going to monitor for data collection. But again, I cannot anticipate opportunities to see the learning if I don't have time to plan for opportunities to collect data. So I feel like, again, if we want students to know that the culture of learning is an actual process and journey, teachers have to be in a position to say, I understand this is my lesson plan and I have 3 days. If I do the math myself, here's where I know struggle will live. Now, if I know what students have to do, let me go back and figure out what this whole lesson plan is asking for me as a teacher. And now I can identify where my data collection moments are. And again, we have exit tickets. So even if we actually said in a DDI cycle, like our starting point would be that we're going to make a commitment to evaluate student work at the exit ticket level, that can still help teachers inform where those opportunities lived before they did the exit ticket. So again, we're going to just have to practice this, like the data lens, but I don't want that to be the focus because that will literally be synonymous to what I'm saying is happening to students. The teacher development journey is something that we have to clarify and codify so that they can be sure that they build some automaticity to what does it mean to be planned? What does it mean that I've taught today? And what am I thinking about in terms of my impact? And that has to be data-driven. If I can answer those 3 questions effectively, then I would say then you're an effective teacher, right? Because that's going to be what's going to drive monitoring of your practice. And that's something that we talked about, like how do we actually create some automaticity around the pedagogy of teaching, not just the content that I'm teaching.
If I can chime in here, I also really appreciate the discussion tonight. And I just want to go back to the claim earlier, the observation that we saw students being consumers of knowledge and doers of activities rather than drivers of their learning. One, was that observed more in one subject area than another? And 2, did we have any observations or findings outside of math and ELA? Like what about the sciences or social studies?
We did not. Just in terms of where we are, we like to make sure that we have a lot of supports to back up what we observe. We just opened a science pathway this year. And so we have not done work with observations for science. The other piece of that is multilingual learners is a pathway that we're doing this year. So this is really, we feel like we have experts and content around ELA and math, so we did not observe other spaces. So I would answer that first. Second, I would say, I think that claim, I was happy that we did arrive there, because even in the instance where the tools were there, like math, we still saw the push for answer getting. So the ELA, we saw more variance. Again, I think it's because we don't have a full curriculum. We're using a resource as a curriculum. So there are some things there that we're driving towards that same experience that we're trying to fix. When I say answer getting, I want you to imagine the teacher most likely in the classroom is spending time ensuring that students understand what they are being called to do. So we could walk in and give directions, make sure everyone understands the direction, and then students get to work, and then I can move around to make sure that I can get you through the completion. Very rarely did we see the teacher call students to come back from task, to learn together or to check for where learning was. And so that was the whole idea of like not driving learning. Students were definitely more concerned with the task. Do they understand what they're being asked to do and completing it, instead of, well, what are we learning? Like, why are we doing this? And what are the key concepts and understandings? What are the themes? We didn't see a lot of discussion in classrooms.
Thank you.
Erica, I know I can't see you. I don't know if you have any questions.
Nope, I just struggled to find the unmute button. I'm good.
Thank you.
Any further questions before we close this piece? Well, thank you so much for your presentation today, and for further enlightening the board. As we're getting close to close out this academic school year, it brings great value to the information that this award provided us as we continue to refine our work, further define the goals aligned to our strategic plan for the upcoming academic school year. And I thought it would be a great opportunity for the board to get a small sample size of the deeper conversation that we had with Unbound Ed at the culmination of this walkthrough. We're looking to continuing this work to deepen our practice. We have made great strides, but still have a lot of work to do. As articulated earlier, for instance, with the literacy work, we adopted the Wonders as a program, and we are continuing to look at how do we refine those tools to strengthen our overarching curricula across the district. And as stated earlier, talking about how do we further develop what we have to incorporate full text into the work that we're doing in literacy K-5, and further expanding that as well into the 6 to 8 grade band as well. But we need to give our educators an opportunity to acclimate themselves with the tool, because it was a new resource. And as we continue to familiarize ourselves with the tools, we will continue to refine the work and strengthen practice across the district. But despite the pandemic, we had a strong commitment to continually focus on educating our students despite the odds that we face. And the findings of this walkthrough speak to the testament that we have maintained our course, although we still have work to do in moving teaching and learning forward, despite many of the challenges that we faced during these past few years. With that, I'm going to transition over, thank you so much, to the next component of our evening, which is focused around student voice. As you know, we have formed a number of student groups across the district, some that have been pre-existing, some that are new, that allow us to support our scholars in building leadership and advocacy capacity so that they can enact the work that you're doing right now the seats that you are sitting in now, but also continue to support our community at large as they further develop as young adults and advocates. Our goal is that we immerse them in becoming the leaders of tomorrow, but we don't need to wait for tomorrow for them to be able to voice, advocate, and exhibit leadership qualities that they can practice now. So a lot of what you will see this evening is how many of our scholars are already leading the work in many areas. And I'll turn it over to Dr. McBride to kind of walk us through this wonderful experience this evening. Oh, but wait, one moment. I have a little surprise for everybody. But before we engage the older scholars, I had the opportunity during Read Across America to meet a few scholars that were working on persuasive pieces. And we're putting together really interesting arguments around certain things that we should consider across the school system, and also just community-based ideas. I came across a young lady, her name is Isabella Otero, who had a proposal for me. She actually, when we finished the reading, came to me and said, I have something I need to show you. Can you come to my computer? And we started a conversation that turned into a number of email communications around her proposal around nap time and the importance of nap time. So I'm gonna ask Isabella and Ms. King, her teacher, to please come forward. Isabella is a Brookside student. Let's give her a round. And she has a proposal to present, and because today our focus is around elevating student voice, I thought it would be important for us not only to look at our middle high school scholars, but also see our young elementary school scholars and how they are already becoming advocates and leaders within our community. And I hope that she can persuade you around some policy changes around that side.
Good evening. My name is Isabella Otero. I'm in 5th grade and I go to Brookside Elementary. I'm here to inform you about how important napping is for students in all grades. Did you know that sleep helps with your health, feelings, and focus? Many kids don't get enough sleep at home. Without proper sleep, kids can have their growth, get sick, this impacts school because they get tired, and that makes it hard and makes them forget what they learned.
That's Erica.
The solution to this problem is quite simple. Allow students to nap during school. We should have nap time for 30 minutes. Studies have shown that should get between 9 and 10 hours of sleep to learn and be focused in class. Napping has been shown to improve memory, making it an effective tool for learning. These breaks would give students the opportunity to recharge and refocus, leading to better work in the classroom. Why is it important? Well, research shows that napping can actually improve school performance. We could create a more supportive and effective learning environment for all. I'm sure you might be wondering, how is this going to work? Well, nap time can happen either at the beginning or end of the hardest subjects, math, reading and math. Students can vote on which choice they would like to make. Naps are new and improve your energy during the day. Napping helps remove stress. Any questions?
I have a question for you. So you're saying that we need some more nap time during the school day, and that sometimes the students aren't getting enough sleep. Do you feel that you don't get enough sleep at night times?
Yeah.
Yeah? Do you stay up a little late, or does your mind keep
My
going?
mind keeps going and I look at the ceiling.
Isabella, do you ever take a nap on the weekends
Yes,
and in the afternoon?
sometimes.
Sometimes, can you do it for 30 minutes or do you sleep for a couple of hours?
I sleep for a couple hours.
So I have also read some research saying that the nap, 20 to 30 minutes, is just the right amount of time so that you don't wake up groggy and then you don't mess with your sleep at night. But I do want to share with you an experience I had when I was in, my elementary went up to 8th grade, and I think we did it the whole time, but my memory is in 8th grade. So we're older than you, and we had a nap time every day in class. And how did we do that? We had a little corduroy piece of cloth that we put over the desk, because when we'd leave, we'd put the chair on top of the desk. And, okay, so we had that corduroy, and we'd take it out at nap time, and no one complained about this. There were lots of, you think it would be kind of a giggly thing. Everyone was fine with, we'd put our head down. I went to school in South Norwalk at St. Joseph's, and the nun would tell us, okay, you can nap, and people we'd just fall asleep. Sometimes I remember drooling and thinking, I hope nobody's and then we wake up, and true to your point, we felt so much better after that. So I think you have some good ideas there.
Thank you.
How would you implement nap time? Especially if there's children that may not want to nap. Have you thought about that?
Well, some teachers have comfy little areas, and some people read before they sleep. So maybe kids can do that, and then they'll get a little tired, and then they could sleep wherever their teacher has a spot for them or at their desk.
I just want to say, Isabella, as a firm believer in naps, I fully support this. And I just hope that there's room in this proposal for your teacher to get a nap too. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? So Isabella, Ms. Carpio is the chair of the policy committee. If you want to further engage in this conversation, you might want to have a follow-up conversation with Ms. Carpio about a possible presentation to the policy committee. Because in order for us to consider this, it would have to go through the policy committee. So that might be a next step for you to consider as you continue to advocate.
Thank you.
Wonderful presentation. And Dr. McBride, now I can officially turn it over to you.
Thank you. And aligning with the idea about students owning their learning, as well as wanting to hear their voices through discourse or otherwise we've just seen. Tonight will be about less of the adults talking and hearing more from our scholars, which we're really excited about. So we'll start with Mr. Valenzizi's scholars to kick us off.
Good evening, everybody. And I just love Isabella's idea. Can we actually implement that actually?
In cabinet?
Let's see, right here, right now.
Let's see. We'll incorporate it into our healthy break.
So I'm really excited to be here tonight as we're talking about student voices. One of the reasons why I'm up here is because in working with Ms. Carpio on our policies. One policy has come up that will be on the May policy agenda, looking to put into place around transgender, non-binary regulations for our district. And in that process, this is the first time that I've had, at least that I've been involved in the district, where a policy has truly been generated directly from students. And so tonight, we wanted to just bring up our some members of our Center for Youth Leadership and the Pride Club, which are both at our McMahon campus and our Norwalk High campus. So guys, coming up. I'm just going to introduce them and then let them talk a little bit about some of the work that they've done. The one thing I would like to say though is, you know, in these processes, I've had an opportunity to talk to both of these groups over the last few weeks, and we're actually looking for more and more input. It was actually Emily that had brought something up when we were talking about the transgender policy. And one of the things that struck me was their thought process as a student to not just think about students, but a lot of the conversation we talked about was how do we help our adults? Because really, a lot of these conversations, it's very uncomfortable potentially for adults to understand how to be able to implement this. So just the fact that you're thinking about that and actually making sure that's part of it was just eye-opening to me. So really, I just want to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to introduce them, and then we'll go through a couple of slides and talk about some of the work that they do. First of all, I'd like to also just talk about the two, their two leaders at the building. Bob Hacienda, I don't know if you want to just kind of raise your hand. And then, okay, so Josiah, I'm gonna butcher your last Narrow. So thanks. But both of them have been leading the Pride Club and CYL, and thanks to administration too for coming, Dr. Black and Ms. Benari for supporting. But from the Center for Youth Leadership, we have here tonight Emily Lupinacci, Rashni and Raisa Yusuf. And from our Pride Club, we have Ashland and Emily DeSantis. Right, so why don't we just go to the next slide, and we'll let you, Emily, go right ahead there.
So we'd first like to start off by thanking the following people for having us here: the Board of Education and Dr. Estrella for calling us to this meeting, Mr. Ralph Valenzizi and Ms. Barbara Namani for meeting with us previously to talk about our proposed policy for transgender students, and Barbara Wood, the assistant principals, department chairs, and class advisors at Brian McMahon High School for supporting and encouraging student voice. We define student voice as changing policies and programs that impact students' lives.
If you guys want to come and just talk a little bit. So really tonight was just kind of more of an open conversation around what the actual club was about, our mission and vision, and their methods, and some of the issues that they've been addressing.
So I'm one of the presidents of the Pride Club at PTEC in Norwalk High, and I've been a part of it for the entire time that I've been in school, and took on this leadership role because I believe this club is extremely important to our community. The main reason that we create this club and do this club is to create a safe space and inclusive community for the LGBTQ members as well as allies in the school. We try to do a number of things in our club, like we are currently trying to get a bulletin board put up where we can post current events for like things going on in the LGBTQ community and for things like this policy that we're trying to bring awareness to. And like a few years ago, we got pride flags put up in all of the rooms in our school, which was just another thing for inclusion, which I think that inclusion is huge because we're all here together at this school and we should all feel accepted and comfortable being there. So that's what I want to start off with.
Yes. So, I guess
About some of the projects that we've done?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can go into some of the recent student voice campaigns that we have addressed. including, not limited to, but including what we are working on right now. So the Center for Youth Leadership at UPenn has embarked on several different issues that we like to cover that not only include the lives of students, but also their futures. So one thing that we have accomplished is the issue in regards to menstrual health of students. So by including menstrual products in the restrooms and such, we've also focused on issues such as child marriage, which eliminates marriage before the age of 16. We have focused on the rights of nail salon workers in Norwalk because we also keep in conscious not only our students within our school, but our community at hand. And we convinced the Norwalk Department of Health to increase from the numbers of 1 to 2 annual inspections, in nail salons. And we've increased access to sports teams by Muslim students in schools by working with our athletic director to revise our Ryan McMahon High School website to include approval on wearing leggings and long sleeves and headscarves as a way to try out for sports such as volleyball. And we've also worked towards affirmative consent use on college campuses in terms of sexual assault cases. And in addition, we have worked on projects where we've worked to advocate for immigrant students where they can pay in-state tuition, because sometimes these students are not able to have access to the funds despite the fact that they are paying for them. And additionally, human trafficking is a main issue that we focus on as well, with minors involved and they're no longer arrested for prostitution. Additionally, some of the current student voice campaigns that we're working on, which include the rights of transgender students, we've been working closely with with our partner in Stanford, which is the Mayor's Youth Leadership Council, to refine the Stanford Board of Education document with an emphasis on definitions, privacy, and teacher professional development. So like Mr. Valenzusi addressed earlier, so that not only students have a well-rounded knowledge about this concept, but as well as staff as well, so that staff knows how to address these students by the proper definitions and they know what barriers that they can succumb to, I guess, in terms of privacy, so that no one is overstepping a boundary. In addition, we have been working with several bills up in Hartford, including but not limited to child marriage, training of school resource officers in Connecticut, menstrual health, endometriosis, and the training of school nurses and school-based health centers in terms of endometriosis and other menstrual health issues. We've talked about the annual powder puff game that occurs at our high school, as well as human trafficking by prohibiting hotels and motels from renting rooms on an hourly basis, which would ultimately prohibit and limit the amount of human trafficking incidents that occur. Additionally, we've been focusing a lot on MLL students' rights, where we meet with MLL students this week, actually on Thursday, to review the legislation that's been proposed in Hartford so that they are also aware of their rights. And additionally, we have been working around a lot of things revolving Title IX and sexual assault, because we want to make sure that due to events that are recurring in our community as well as others, that students know their rights and that they know their rights during an investigation, so that if they're ever being imposed on an investigation, they know what they can and cannot do.
Awesome.
Any questions from the board? I think really we just want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the work that they're doing.
I don't have a question, but as a board chair, it's gonna be, 3.5 years ago, when I ran for the Board of Education, I ran listening to the students. For me, the most important thing, my number one topic, was listening to the students. And now that in November, campaigns are gonna start soon, and in November, the community has to vote in new members. I would hope that you guys go to those debates and ask those hard questions, because I was given very, very hard questions, and I made good friendships with those students and those families, because this is all very important information, and like you said, us as adults, we think very differently. We need the education. We need to learn to be able to help you and educate you in the ways that are needed. And there's been a lot of changes since I've been on the board. And I hope that, moving forward, we continue making these changes and these positive strides for all the students here in Norwalk. As a mom, I feel very proud to hear that you are going to Hartford and you're listening and you're speaking up, because that's huge, because people forget that a child it doesn't matter how old you are, you can make change. It doesn't matter that you're not an adult. It doesn't matter that, you're not living on your own, you don't have a job, you don't speak the language. But as a person, as a group, you guys are making a lot of change. And I know that the families here in Norwalk, I hear about your groups, I hear about everything that you're working on, and families are very thankful, and I'm thankful.
I just want to make a comment too, and just say that I'm impressed by all of you. You are informed, you're thoughtful, you're very empathetic, and if young people in our country are like all of you present, I think we're going to be in good hands, because I think about the climate that we're in now, and we need young people like you to be engaged in these issues. And I'm so glad to see that you're doing it. What made you, how did you come up with the issues that you've decided to tackle?
So the Center for Youth Leadership at Brian McMahon revolves around a lot of issues that correspond to the students. So what we'd like to do is we like to investigate what is impacting our students as well as our community as a whole. And we not only like to think about what's impacting just people within our school that are able to speak up about it, but also advocating for those who may be afraid to speak up for it. So oftentimes we look at issues or we just think of them that impacts them. And usually what we'll do is we'll take something and we'll see how far we can expand with it. So for example, human trafficking has been on our agenda for quite a while, just in terms of seeing what we can do to bring more awareness. And as we continue to focus on it, we continue to evolve more. And with our transgender student policy, we examined how in Stanford they established this wonderful policy within their Stanford Board of Education. So we witnessed something happening within the community and decided to think to ourselves, how can we see this to implement it within our community? Because there are several students, and even if it's only 1 or 2 students, that's enough for it to be brought up as an issue, because if not everyone in the school community is feeling safe or feeling regarded to with what we are bringing up, then what is the point? Because we want to make sure that we are there so that as students, we are continuing to advocate for ourselves. And not only, like we said, bringing awareness to what we want to do with ourselves with the students, but as well as with staff, because obviously there are different generations among staff and students. So it's important that we not only provide a bridge for staff, students, teachers, adults, etc., to be able to understand what we're bringing up, but also for us to understand what they're bringing up so that we create that mutual bound with them so that we're able to communicate and establish this change.
Good job. Do your thing.
And before I forget, Thursday is the Norwalk High School Parents Club meeting. So we need that bulletin board. Just ask Dr. Black to bring it up at the meeting. And if we can get you that board, and if you can find a space, we'll make that happen.
Just before you all sit down, I just want to just echo, because I'm sitting here and just thinking to myself, wow, we're talking about, the leaders of tomorrow. Well, I just want to fast forward and just get out the way and have y'all take over right now. Just tell me what to do.
Okay.
We all read the news and we know that there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that's making people get all head up. And I always appreciate when I hear young voices cut right to the heart of an issue and make it so simple. It's not that hard. What we're talking about is affirming everybody's humanity, and that's the easiest thing in the world. I happen to be a proud gay man, and I think it's important for us here in Norwalk to one, show that representation matters, that when we talk about equity and inclusion, we're talking about everybody. And I know that my colleagues on the board and I are 100% on board with you, and if we don't already have that policy in the works, we're going to make it happen.
It's in the works.
Can I also just chime in before you all sit down? So I just want to say I too am blown away with everything that you all are organizing around and you are activating on, and I hope that you know that you are activists. And I just wanted to point it out because it's a little bit glaring that all of you are females, you're all women. And I love seeing that. I became an activist myself when I was in high school. specifically around the issue of people with disabilities. And I've always considered myself to be a voice for the voiceless. And so many of the topics and the issues that you are tackling have to do with people who don't have a voice. And I hope that you will continue with your activism, absolutely continue to go to Hartford, reach out to your legislators. I'm assuming most of you are not 18 yet, you're not ready to vote, but don't forget to register the day you turn 18 and make sure to go to the polls at every single election because they all matter and we need you, and I'm just very impressed, so keep going.
Thank you.
Keep it up with Girls Rocky. I'd like to introduce Ms. Ashante James and her amazing young women and mentors to talk about the work we've done.
Good evening, my name is LaShante James. I'm an assistant principal at Brian McMahon High School, actually grade 9 now. When I began this endeavor, I was a grade 12 assistant principal. I'd first like to acknowledge the mentors who came out this evening from Norwalk High, Tanya Small, and from Honus Ridge, Andrea Riley, who came to support the students. I'm gonna do a brief PowerPoint and then I'm gonna let the girls talk. So I was given this opportunity to lead this group as like a director or facilitator by Dr. McBride. And in front of you is the vision and mission of My Sister's Keeper, which really organically developed out of a workshop with the mentors when we started or launched this program last year. We did kind of like a 2-month launch last year, and this year we've been able to have monthly meetings. But really we want each girl to walk away with a relationship with someone in their school building, someone to add to their village. They don't need to be at risk. It could be a student who needs an honest connection. And that's really what we want to accomplish. So these students have access to a positive female mentor within their building, but also some have made connections across schools within the district. We want to empower these young ladies so that they become natural leaders. And then we also would like to give them an outlet or a resource within their building. So I would like to present to you one of the recent projects we did, thanks to Dr. McBride and Nick, where we have a representative for almost every school in the district reciting The Hill We Climb.
We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Become the future.
Our blunders become their burdens.
But one thing is certain, if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright.
So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left.
Every breath from my bronze pounding chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one.
We will rise from the golden hills of the West.
We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution.
We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states.
We will rise from the sun-baked South.
We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover.
In every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge, battered and beautiful.
When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid.
The new dawn balloons as we free it.
For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it.
If only we are brave enough to be it.
We have a total of 80 young ladies who participate in this program with almost 20 mentors that span over Nathan Hale, Rowland Middle School, Honus Ridge Middle School, West Rocks Middle School, Brian McMahon High School, Norwalk High School, and P-Tech. There's usually a mentor who goes on the trips. They touch base with students within the schools, and then we convene as a larger group. once a month at one of the campuses within the district. We launched this year with the movie The Woman King. Each young lady was presented with a cosmetic bag and a lanyard, and also they received hoodie sweatshirts, which you'll see some of the ladies wearing today. Following the movie, we met and we debriefed over lunch. They were presented with questions at each of their tables to discuss and debrief. You can go to the next one. To discuss and debrief the things that they heard in the movie. So here's pictures of our field trip. One of the young ladies actually said, "This is all for us." And I said, "Of course." And she said, "Why are you treating us so good?" And I said, "Don't you think you deserve it?" So the ladies are very appreciative and they look forward to the opportunity to connect. We've discussed topics like identity, womanhood, career planning. We were fortunate to have Dr. Estrella on a committee or a panel a week ago at the end of Women's History Month, and there were 10 professional women from across the state. And the ladies had the opportunity to hear their educational journey, advice on how they can get to where they want to be. And it spanned across different careers so that we can appeal to the different young ladies' interests. This is an example of kind of the debrief after the movie. They went from table to table, so we don't keep them within their school groups. One thing I love about this, the girls don't want to stay in their groups. When I say you're gonna meet in your school group and do an activity, you're like, why can't we go and socialize with the other girls? So I let them take that over. We also, after this meeting, we took a poll on what they wanted to talk about moving forward. Things came up like self-defense, how learning more about my hair type. The girls wanted to learn more about Africa and the culture, especially after the movie. So we were able to discuss that more, and there's a video at the end to show you what we were able to surprise them with one day. So this is an example of one of the table discussions we had about womanhood. They don't know that I put it in there. It's a
question. What does it mean to be a woman? Independent, strong, brave. Pretty.
Heavy on the independent though.
Yeah, heavy on independent.
Guess what I learned how to do yesterday? I learned how to change my own tire yesterday.
Strong-willed.
Strong-willed.
You just need to have a strong opinion.
Love yourself first.
Confidence.
Love yourself first. Confidence.
Being able to speak up for yourself.
Facts.
Advocacy. Protect yourself.
Advocacy.
Make sure you have that word.
So we heard womanhood, independence, advocacy.
What does it mean?
They came up with that on their own, and they took leadership over the roundtable discussion. That's a mixed group of middle school and high school young ladies from different schools. So they really do take ownership over activities like that when they're given a task. This is just some pictures from the field trip we took. And we did a bonding activity of bowling. Mentors and mentees teamed up and participated in a bowling activity following the debrief of the movie. So we had a full day to launch this school year, kind of set the tone of what we wanted to accomplish. This is a mixture of mentors, mentees together from all schools. We also do workshops. The one around identity was self-identity, how people identify you. We talked about stereotypes, and this is just an example. Ms. Riley is here of one of the discussions. She's a health teacher at PONUS. So we're fortunate to have people across different subject matters and different titles. So we have paraprofessionals, we have counselors, teachers, administrators. So the ladies really get to connect with people in different parts of the building. And the last thing was, one of the things they wanted out of the movie was to learn more about African culture and dance. So we were able to hire an instructor out of New Haven who actually owns 2 dancing schools. And she drove from New Haven to Brian McMahon and led a workshop for the ladies to engage in African dancing. So literally within an hour, they learned a whole routine. She was like, you need to get these girls into a dance class. They're so talented. So the last video before we invite the ladies up to talk is the choreography they learned, African dance. loved it. So, this is just a small. This is just a small snippet of what, I mean, I have pictures, a whole folder of pictures of our interactions, but I think you can understand better what they get from this experience from the students. So I have 3 students here to speak to you very briefly about their experience at My Sister's Keeper. I would like to begin with our middle school representative, Melody Sanchez, proponent of
My name is Melody Sanchez, and I am with MSK has helped me improve my self-confidence. My speaking skills and it's teaching me that it is okay to trust other people. My mental transformers help me see that there is a healthy and unhealthy way to express my feelings and tell people about my life. MSK isn't just about lectures, being good people for us. It's about building a community we can all feel safe and to talk about things relevant to us. I also want to say that this program helps me lay my mood Sundays and makes me feel happy. I've grown relationships with people from other schools and colleges and high school.
Next, I would like to invite up a senior for Brian DeMann High School, Josilia Cato.
Good evening. My name is Josilia Cato, and I am a senior at Brian DeMann High School and a part of My Sister's Keeper. Throughout the program, I have learned many skills and real-life valuable lessons. I have made many relationships that have been beneficial and shaped me to become a better leader. In My Sister's Keeper, we did a lot of activities to learn about ourselves as women. For example, when we went to watch The Woman King, I learned to embrace my womanhood, and because of that, you can do anything, which is basically everything MSK stands for. It taught me to respect our journey as women and excel doing it. Having mentors that can relate and understand you makes a positive impact in our lives. It has empowered me to think differently about what my womanhood stands for. I can say I'm very glad I was chosen for My Sister's Keeper, and I can recommend it for anyone wanting to join.
Most vocal members, Leslie Velez from Norwalk High School.
So I'm here to talk about the importance of MSK. It has not just helped me, but I can guarantee you it's helped everybody in the MSK organization. Just given the fact that just because we come from different places, different races, different ages, it doesn't mean we have to separate into our own groups. During one of our meetings, we actually went ahead and watched the first video that you guys obviously watched. And we were taught that we all look different, but yet we all have the same thing within. We all have the same expressions to express to other people. We all have things to learn from one another. Just because one's 11 years old and the other is 17, it doesn't mean you can't learn from an 11-year-old. Just as if my mentors are mentoring me, it doesn't mean they can't mentor me as well. I'm here to help people younger than me and help the people that are above me as well. We're a new generation, we have new ideas, we have ideas to expand in many different ways. Our mentors are here to open our wings, but we are here to teach ourselves how to fly. It's just the way we perceive ourselves. Our organization also helped a lot of us during the first meeting that we had with the movie. You should have seen how all of us were celebrating, we were all clapping, we were all there for excitement. When the women overcame their struggles. Just because we are women doesn't mean we shouldn't have the same stepping stool as men do. We are here to also achieve one another's dreams. We're here to help each other with our dreams. We're here to support ourselves with our dreams. We're not here to separate ourselves into different groups. Just because we come from different places, we should separate ourselves into different alleys. We're all here to combine ourselves and share our culture within. Just because some person is Hispanic and the other comes from Africa and the other one is Caucasian, that doesn't mean you can't share your own culture with one another, and we have all learned that. We have all became friends and have connections. I would have never met Jojo if it wasn't for this MSK place. I would have never had sleepovers with my best friend Nevaeh if it wasn't for MSK. I would have never met any of these wonderful women that I've met now if it weren't for them. And I'm very thankful for my counselor here as well, because if it weren't for her, I wouldn't even be here standing today. I wouldn't have to express myself, and I'm very thankful to have this opportunity to be up here.
You know, one thing that really resonated with me as the adult and learning from the mentees, over the Christmas break, they planned like a slumber party at one of the girls' houses and I wasn't invited. But it was girls from different high schools who took the initiative to text each other and they connected over the break even though we weren't in session. And that is true, a true genuine connection that they developed themselves. It was organic and it was real. And that is what we hope to continue with MSK. I see a hand from a board member that I just want to say, any parents or community members who want to learn more, we now have an email address, mysisterskeeper@norwalks.org. Feel free to email and it'll go directly to me. We will open up for more students next year as we have some graduating and some will be moving on. So I am interested in connecting with more students and also parents who may have questions.
Yes, Erica has a question for the young lady that just spoke.
Okay, Leslie, she has a question for you, sweetheart. And I'm all done after that. Hey, Erica.
Hi. Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing today. My question for you and the other women that spoke is, how does this get disseminated out beyond this finite group of women in your groups? What's the teach a teacher model?
Okay, so that's a very good question, actually. But
So we took recommendations from counselors or administrators who knew ladies who could benefit from an additional connection within the building or a check-in person when we first launched the program. So that's how the information was disseminated. And as people received information, there were some girls who maybe transferred schools or we hold them accountable for their grades and their behavior. Maybe they're put on like a probationary period, a spot may open up, and we'll have a wait list where we'll add young ladies who have been referred to us for the mentoring part. And then what was the second part of your question?
So my question was actually more specific to, how does what they learn in this group, how does it trickle down to women outside of their group? So how are they taught to teach others the principles that are learned as part of this group? So it's not, just isolated to these women, and that they're actually carrying out this message, throughout, their relationships in other circles.
This organization also branches out to people within our school. There's a lot of girls actually that I hang around that didn't have the chance to be involved in the organization, but yeah, we still teach them about it. We still talk to them about it, and whenever they're down or like there's an issue going, we always relate back to it. Like, what is the main issue about this? Like, we always share awareness of what's going on in our present day and how we can involve it in our future modern day. It's just like, we go back to the past tense, we figure out a way to figure a problem out for them, we found a solution for them, and we help them out through what we learned through MSK. MSK is really shaping the women of tomorrow. I really wish you guys could see more videos because we are really shaping the future. And I really want to see this in many, many years from now, just because I'm not speaking for myself since I have one more year of high school, but I'm speaking for the little kids that are behind me. They are shaping the future of tomorrow. These middle schoolers have a great mind, so do our high schoolers, and it's just like, this is an everyday issue that is always brought up, and it really teaches us how to solve those issues. So we could just share it within our community at our schools, from like she said, that we do have sleepovers, and we're all from different schools, like McMahon and Norwalk High. So we communicate with one another, and we also come up with ideas on how to spread this awareness just with our friends that are outside of the community.
That's fantastic.
I just really want to acknowledge how great of a job it is to have created a network of 80 women amongst each other. And I also want to give a shout out to the staff who are involved. I understand that outside of their regular roles, the evidence of how much they've invested in this to really create this place for all these women to belong, it's really plausible. And I really want to thank you for your efforts, and I'm excited to see what you guys have, what you women have next.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to know, as the saying goes, sisters are doing it for themselves. And heard one of them said that she just learned how to change her own tire, and I can't even do that. So.
We'll have to tell her. If there's nothing else, I'm turn it back over to Dr. McBride. Thank you so much for your attention.
Oh, thank you.
Greetings again. Before I begin, I just want to also acknowledge the village that are the mentors, all of our schools who make this possible. I'd like to thank Dr. Strayer for her vision also in prioritizing this work, because we understand the importance of making sure that our scholars feel connected. And before I begin, and I'm going to switch my presentation around a little bit because I want to be conscious of our young scholars, I'd like to have all my young kings join me. Stand behind me. And I use the term intentionally because that's who they are. And that term represents a legacy, a royalty, an expectation of greatness. And so My Brother's Keeper is designed to empower and develop the new future leaders of young males who are committed to service, who will be the change makers and the innovators. And today is actually another teaching for them today. Because one of my priorities is making sure that our scholars are exposed to these opportunities. And so today is another training session for them. We're pushing them outside of their comfort levels. I had conversations with them like, oh, I don't want to talk, how many people are going to be there? But I said, you are standing in the seats that have been created for you. You are our next leaders. And more specifically, I am there. And that is the focus. They understand no matter when they're fearful, when they're afraid, there's somebody next to them, holding them up, making sure that they will become successful. And so we've been together for about almost a year. We started out with 2 months last year, like Mr. James communicated earlier, and we really kicked off this year with the Rites of Passage program. And the way it's previously been structured is that myself, the mentors, we come and we talk to our young men. We impart the knowledge. We give the tough lesson, but we also let them know that they are loved. But we also take an inventory of their experience in My Brother's Keeper, and understanding that we're not just giving them information, we need information from them. They're learning from us, we're oftentimes learning from them, from their experiences and how they're engaging in this learning. So this year we did something a little different. We developed our very first MBK Student Leader Committee, which are the young men you see standing behind me. They represent every school in Newark Public Schools. We have from Nathan Hale, Waco, Egerman, sorry for your last name. From Ponus, we have Kai Chatton, Rhoda Middle School, Nick Sainthal, I apologize for your last name. West Rocks, Angel Lucetta, Ryan McMahon High School, Emerald Charles, Norwalk High School, Jalen Brown, CGS, Matthew Millian, P-Tech, Isaiah Williams, and P-Tech also, Damari Rogers. And so what has happened is I wanted to be able to make them understand that this is their organization, that they're not just here to experience something, but also contribute to this experience. And so we developed our very first committee, and the focus is they're providing feedback on the actual structure of our convenings. Our current structure is that we engage in mindfulness. We have remarks from myself, mentors, we have small group instruction, we have whole group conversations, we engage in an academic component of writing or discussion, and then we eat, have pizza, and have fun, right? So I met with them, I said, so talk to me about this program. Do you feel like what's missing from it? What can be better? Do you feel like you're getting understanding of what's the intention? And so out of that, they actually are now planning the focus of our activities for the district-wide convenings. They're facilitating and leading some components of the actual convening itself. They're supporting leading the mentoring sessions at their school site. And we're actually going to have our very first president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer come our next meeting because they can actually have to speak to the debate. So we are transitioning the meeting to being about their voice. So next slide, please. So our last meeting was held at P-Tech in Newark High. And so our focus was around service. because our motto is, he who would be king must first learn to serve. And so it was led by one of our young scholars, and our mentee leadership panel was facilitated by Damari, who's in behind me over here, with a focus around why is service important, because our focus is service this month. Discuss acts of service that have impacted the world, past to present, and then how they see themselves using their life in service for others. So with that said, I'll give you a small clip of one of our young scholars leading the opening of our meeting, because again, we're stepping back and letting them step front. Hope we can hear it, because it was my phone that day. Nick was on hiatus. Well, we're gonna save that for another time so we can get the sound together.
My name is Jacob Burton. I'm a senior at Tech Monroe. Our goal for today is he who wants to be king must first serve. So to me, that goal means in order to have, if you want to be king, you have to set the standards for yourself. So if you want to be great, you need to do great things. You need to hold yourself accountable. I kind of reflected on how I connect, but basically, I want to be great just like everybody else in the world. So I want to set those standards for myself and be able to set standards for other young men. My thoughts about this program, I've been in this program for like a minute, so it's helped me it's brought a different side of me out, like a softer side, and I feel like it helped me connect to other young males. My group didn't have a vision for it, so.
I know the next one's kind of low, so we'll just pause it there. But the whole convening was planned by these young men behind me. And so since we're focusing on voice, I want to actually ask them, a few of them first, the first question about voice. My first question to them is, why is your voice important?
Alright, so my answer for the question of why is your voice important, for me, it shows that I'm able to express my thoughts and how I feel about different subjects and different things from people behind me, because we're the leadership team, but we're also we're kind of the main idea from all the other schools. So we have to be able to have a big voice, be able to talk about how we feel about different things, different subjects. And kind of from MBK, every single day, they touch on how we're able to change the world, how we're able to change all the parts, how we're able to change other people around us. And that helps us be able to show people our ideas. Because now, a while back, we weren't able to express, men, especially men and boys like me of my color, weren't able to express how we feel about different subjects and different topics. So it helps us keep the idea of being able to make the world better and how we want to see it.
Can you say your name?
My name is Marco Adjuman, and I go to Nathan Hill Middle School.
Can you guys start with your name and school so everybody knows who you are? Because when Dr. McBride was saying your name, they couldn't see you.
I'm Jalen Brown, and I go to North High School. I just want to touch on what you said, because I'm a young black man in America, and at some point in time, we weren't able to express ourselves or give our feedback into situations. So I feel like anytime I get a chance to give feedback or just say how I feel about a situation, I'm going to use my voice, because at one point we wasn't able to. So I'm going to speak for myself and for the people that were able to use their voice.
My name is Nick Sinta, and I go to Roy Middle School. And I think my voice is important because it can make a difference. For example, if someone needs help and I help them, that's basically making a difference.
My next question is, how are you going to use your voice to change the world?
Good evening. My name is Amara Charles. I'm from Brown McMahon High School. I was asked how am I going to use my voice to change the world. Obviously, it took me a couple minutes to come up with an answer to that question. That's not something that people are usually asked. But I think I settled on the answer that I'm going to use my voice to change the individual people around me, whether that's 1, 2, 3, or 4, and impact their worlds and hopefully impact someone else. I think I'd rather change than inspired, because when you change, you evolve and recreate. I'm a firm believer that consistency kills. And if you stay consistent in anything, you're sure to die. So I think that's how I use my voice, just to reiterate, just change the people around me. Hopefully that grows.
Hello, my name is DeMar Rogers. I'm a senior at P-Tech Norwalk. And basically I want to encourage people, to basically speak up and use their voice, because a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So in that sense, like with this opportunity right here, I'm talking to you guys, I have the power right now, because you guys are listening to me, I can say what I have to say, because I know myself personally. So if I tell you guys what I need, you guys can help me. So going further in life, I just feel like even if you don't have the voice, there's always someone who has a voice for you. If you don't know what to say, there's always someone older who can tell you what to say and how to go about it. So I just want to encourage people how to talk and how to use their voice and present themselves.
My name is Angel Busita. My name is Angel Busita. I'm from West Bronx Middle School. And the way I want to change the world with my voice is to basically shape this world into a better place, where the next generation can always learn from past mistakes and always, improve from everyone else, and basically make a better education, a better living for the next generation to come.
My name is Kaja. I'm from Columbus Ridge Middle School. And how I use my voice to change the world is to encourage people to do the right thing and get where they want to be, and how they want to be I'm not to say it.
Be kind.
Take your time.
Be the center of the place where they want to be, and let them be who they are.
I'm Isaiah Williams, a sophomore at P-Tech, and I believe my voice is important because I want to help others around me rather than just focusing on myself, because I feel like my friends and family are like the most important part of my life, and without them, I wouldn't be here how I am today.
And so the work is to always give them the opportunities, the support to make sure that they are able to stand at front. I always tell them, whenever you get to see the table, don't take it lightly. And so today's another example of them being at the table and recognizing that they do have the power to shape their experience and anything they want to have happen in the world. So thank you, young kings.
Thank you. Dr. McBride, I have a question. Is there anything that you could, in terms of reflecting and how the year has gone, anything our young kings have taught you?
Their resilience is inspiring. I feel like I'm fortunate to engage with them every single month, and I tell them, and it's gonna sound bad, Dr. Sherry, so close your ears. This is probably some of the best work of the job, being able to meet with them front face, to see their faces, to tell them how much they are loved, to hear them laugh, and to hear them struggle, and to hear them engage in difficult conversations, and to see the connections that they are forming with each other while also growing into these young men that we want them to be. So being able to navigate the things that some of us have never had to at such a young age is very inspiring for me. So their resilience, and even them stepping outside of their comfort zone, because oftentimes young males don't want to be out front. We want to sit in the back. We don't want to talk. We don't want to volunteer. Just I want to hide somewhere. But giving them the space and the opportunity, they will show you just how masterful that they can be. So.
I want to say I was so moved and touched by what they said. One young king said that he wanted to help others and make things better. And I really feel like that too. That's why we're all here. And so to hear your voices kind of come to us, and it just makes it so worthwhile. Loved hearing everything you said.
And if I can add on to what you just said, Mary Ellen. So I loved everything that you guys said, and kind of in the theme of tonight, you guys echoed the importance of using your voice. And sometimes it's scary to use your voice, right? But there's a quote that's, I don't remember who it was, make sure to use your voice even if your voice shakes, right? Even if you're scared, because it's important for you to voice your opinions and your thoughts. We need to hear them. And then the other aspect that really struck me was your leadership capabilities. And so I just wanted to commend all of you for stepping up into these new leadership positions. And it sounds like you're going to be forming an even more elaborate leadership team, which is fantastic, because these are leadership capabilities that if you hone them now and continue through high school and into college, that can take you really far. So good job, Kings.
And I just want to add, somebody said earlier, the importance of learning being a two-way street. Mentees, you're learning from your mentors, and as Dr. McBride just demonstrated, your mentors are learning from you as well. I am pretty sure when I was your age, I would not be able to come up here and do that. So with so much poise, your voices are so strong and so loud and so clear already. You have so much to offer the world. And I just want to say thank you for being here tonight and sharing that with us.
I want to echo what Mr. Austin said, and that is that all of you stood up and spoke. Public speaking can be very difficult. A lot of adults don't like to do it. And so the fact that you guys all stood up and you spoke about what's important to you, every opportunity that you get, have a chance to stand up and speak, it's important.
And also thank you for your patience, because it was a very, very long night. So you sat here and you were listening to all the other students and everything that we discussed tonight. And, speak up, keep moving forward. Dr. McBride, this is amazing. Thank you for sharing all of this. My question to you is, how many members in your program?
We have about 86.
86?
We got to kind of glimpse of the women's band in the video.
Thank you.
And we have one final piece, if I can have my cohort, my colleague. Another piece that we are ensuring that we are getting student voice and their ideas is through an actual survey. So both organizations conducted some surveys, so we want to share some of the data. We're not going to read through all of it, so you have an idea about how the young people are feeling about some of our priorities as an organization, and any changes or feedback they'd like to provide for us as well. So we'll begin with MSK.
So previously shared, our core values are around integrity and the attitude of the young ladies, their confidence, resilience, and leadership. And so the survey asked questions around those core values and how much the ladies really understood it and internalized those values. So the online service was administered between the 7th and the 10th of March. We were able to get about half of the ladies to respond. What we find is email I was actually like calling girls' classrooms, check your emails. So emails sometimes is challenging to get students to respond. We're thankful for the 44 we had. It took about 10 minutes for them to complete. And there were 4 open-ended questions included with the multiple choice questions. So as you can see, overwhelmingly, they have an extremely good experience. Literally, my secretary is emailing me, I'm observing teachers in classrooms, like, there's a young lady down here, like, when are you coming to have another MSK program for her? Or when can she come see you about an MSK program? So the ladies really look forward to it. If you add the light green to it, that is about 96% of the respondents have a good experience as being a member of the program. And then we see that, again, a large piece of the pie, the young ladies find a connection with life. We've been trying to get more feedback, things they would like to cover. We've now kind of branched out into different schools, and the mentors in the school for that month include student voice on what they would like to learn about for that month. So that is also helping in terms of connecting to their life. So this connects to them again. 89% of the ladies feel like they really connect with their mentor. They seek the mentors out. They're in constant communication with their mentors. And even as an assistant principal in Bryant McMahon, I'm able to go across grade levels and I call the ladies down about their grades, ask them how they're doing on an assignment, what do they need in terms of support. And it's really a non-threatening way because I'm not their direct administrator, but really take on the role of their mentor. And we see a mixed bag when it comes to feeling connected to peers. I think part of that is because they come from different schools and different grade levels. The high school ladies gravitate to each other. They've developed relationships outside of school. And then they kind of feel like they mentor the middle schoolers. So I think they take on that leadership role. So this is an area that we would like to move the neutral over to agree or strongly agree and continue to work on that. How has it improved our attitude? Some ladies feel like it's improved. Some ladies come with great attitude. So this one, you know, when we talked about the recruitment, they didn't have to be at-risk young ladies or girls who were in trouble. Some of them came with the skills in terms of integrity and they just needed a connection. So again, this is it has mixed results, but I think that speaks to how we have different ladies coming from different points in their life or different skill sets. But we do see that it has affected them in their the most positive way. And I appreciate the middle quote, MSK has affected me by teaching me different ways to cope, different ways of seeing the world. It has also helped me realize how to understand my life more and helps me be more productive. Very insightful feedback in terms of attitude and also changing their attitudes to our schools. Some girls are improving their attendance because they want to be able to attend the trips and things like that. So they look forward to that. Confidence level, we have some very confident girls. As you can see, some of the ladies that presented today already came with self-confidence, but many have benefited on building their confidence level as our first student spoke about. So we're working on that daily basis. We would like to see our girls more self-confident in building those feelings and reassurance within them. And again, resilience. We see that this is one that we have a lot of positive feedback for. And one of the students says, realizing I am who I am, just really accepting who they are. And self-love has been one that we really try to amplify during our workshops. And leadership, we are now moving towards having school, like I said, ladies in the schools, give input for our workshops, and also seeking leadership positions within the building, being more responsible, and being a role model, not only for other students within the building, but for other students within MSK. So they feel connected to a larger community. Connection, as you see, and confidence, we talked about how important it is to build your confidence. Those larger words are the most repeated words out of this word map when we received the feedback from the young ladies. I am thankful that many of them found friendship, because we know that being a young person and coming out of COVID establishing connections was one of the things that, our students struggled with. So this is another opportunity for them to develop relationships and connections and feel part of something. So I'm very excited about what's to come and to building on some of the progress we made out of year one.
All right, I'll jump in. Our core values are empathy / compassion, integrity, leadership, love, resilience, service, and teamwork. And so we had about, what was this? Next slide still. Is it removed? Well, this is a breakdown of all the students who actually engaged in the survey, 10 from each from Brian McMahon, 8 from CGS, 7 from Newark High School. And so we had about, I would say 60 some odd students, 66, who actually took the survey. How would you rate your overall experience in the MBK program? So it's about 100% all positive. There was no middle or negative when you add both of those together. Empathy. MBK makes me feel good about myself, gives me purpose to help people, with some of the feedback provided from there. Leadership, 70% of students strongly agree that they want to be a leader. How much has MBK made you desire to be a leader? About 47% have a tremendous desire as a result of this particular survey. So most of them hit above, when you actually do it, it's around 72% of them want to be a leader or desire to be a leader. It said the MBK program benefited me by making me more aware of the fact that I am the future, and people are looking at me to take hold and do what I need to do. 76% of them say that they actually have, or they agree or strongly agree they have a positive male figure in their life that they're connected to, including parents, family, but also through this program. So that's some good data for us to be able to make sure we tap into those who still don't feel like they actually have that, till we get 100%. 84% of the MBK students agree or strongly agree that their MBK mentor connects with them, which is the intention of the organization, to make sure they have someone consistently present in their life. Connection to their peers is around 74% agree or strongly agree. Again, similar to what Ms. James communicated, the fact they're still also connected with each other in their building or across schools as well. They said, I appreciate the connection to other males that look like me and know what I go through. We support each other. I have my brothers and feel loved. As a result of MBK, how often do you think about your future? It's about 84%, quite often, all the time. And if you add often, it's about 100% as a result of the work. It has made me realize that I'm valuable and I can do anything if I don't quit, specifically around the core value of resilience. Service, 67.7% of them are saying they are actually committed to service as a result of MBK. So we know we want to get a little bit higher than that, but again, we're sowing the seeds and providing the opportunities for them to be able to engage in service learning. For example, all MBK and MSK will be part of our first books. They will be supporting and volunteering. It's also their golden ticket to our end of the year trip to Washington, D.C. to visit Howard University and the Museum of African American History. So they all will be engaging in service, so that number will improve just organically. Next, how much, I can't see the question, how much has, as I see myself, how much does mindfulness you learned in the MBK program help you remain calm when you are upset? And we have about 82, my math is good, who feel like it has tremendously helped them or helped them in any way. I learned to calm myself down and meditate when something is bothering me. Now I'm doing mental meditation and caring about how I feel. So that's some important feedback and data around mindfulness. And again, the word that shows up the most are the areas that are the biggest patterns throughout the responses: future, leader, connection, grades, confidence, calm are some of the ones that stick out as well. some of the feedback. They want more meetups. I want to meet more often. We should meet more. More engaging activities like the posters we did vision boards, that's what they're referring to. More interactive activities. Meeting successful Black individuals that can tell us about their story and how they got the position that they are in. Also challenges that they faced and how they overcame them. So these are some of the touch points from surveys of our scholars. Any questions for me or Ms. James?
Thank you for your work.
I just want to ask,
Yeah, it's fantastic work.
Very impressive.
Really,
The
really.
students are so impressive, and just to hear them speaking about, and you can tell by their confidence that has improved and that they feel it and they feel engaged with each other and want to engage with other students and other people in the community as well, which is just really touching. It's just really fantastic presentation.
I'm reminded that this is all after school.
It's
And that-
outside
that
of the work.
You have put your heart and soul in after school, and I commend you both for that. I really do.
I just want to say, Dr. McBride, I assume Morehouse was busy if you couldn't have Howard, but I mean, yeah.
Well, you know that thing called budget?
Oh. Okay, fair answer.
So in closing for this evening, just want to say that I'm a firm believer that we shouldn't wait for tomorrow, we can do today. I think Colin talked about the concept of, we always talk about future leadership, but we already have leaders within our district leading the work. And what we're doing is just continuing to nurture our scholars to continue to elevate what they already have within them. And as tied to our strategic plan, when we started our strategic plan, we made a commitment to ensure that as we were developing the document, we immerse ourselves in elevating student voice. And if you look at our vision was not created by the adults in the room, they were created by our scholars. They were the ones who led and designed the vision for our district. And I'm hoping that tonight is, as you can see, one example of many of how we continue to elevate our scholars' voices, and we continue to enable them to have a seat at the table, because they are the consumers of our product, right? And they are the ones that can best inform us of how we can elevate and further develop what we're doing in practice. So more to come. This is just the beginning, and I'm hoping that this helps form the great future that we have to look forward to because of the people that we are developing and nurturing.
Exciting.
Yeah, thank you. Turn it over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, what a wonderful night, great information. Thank you to everybody. Our next item on the agenda is actually public comments, but I don't know if we have anybody here to speak or online. If no one is listed for public comments. Thank you, everyone. So motion to adjourn. Everybody okay?